Hey, welcome to the exciting adventures of the Cranky Geeks. It's autumn, if you hadn't noticed. We have a good show lined up for you this week, and let's begin by introducing today's guests, starting with Dave Mathews, who fancies himself as an inventor and tech journalist, and he's also the Boxee Electronic Engineers guy, B-O-X-E-E.
Where's the engineers guy? What's
Well,
that?
isn't it EE, Electrical Engineers?
Oh, that's good. Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, the box double E. Yeah.
Yeah, Box double E. It's the Box E. Box double
I finally
E.
got a degree. This is great.
Yeah, well, it's better than nothing. On my left is Harry McCracken, the editor-in-chief of a company called Technologizer.com, famous for being for actually getting a publisher fired, which is all editors wanted to do. Every editor's wanted to do that, and Harry's the only one I know of who's actually accomplished it. And finally, Sebastian Ruppli, the co-crank and editor of something called GigaOM. Is that the name of this?
It's rather well known.
It's run by that guy, Sebastian Giga?
Om Malik, our buddy on the show.
Where is he then? How come he's not on the show? We're going
I'm
to get him in
getting
next
him on.
week? Next week?
I'm getting him on. He has a busy schedule.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Huh. By the way, everyone out there should watch Cranky Geeks live at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time every Wednesday, justin.tv/Cranky Geeks. There's also a chat room that we pay attention to. And we actually have somebody dedicated to it, so go in there and chat. All right, Skype founders negotiate a 14% deal with getting, I guess, some part of Skype back. What is this story?
They're back. They bought back a chunk of this, and it's probably good news for eBay because they never really did anything with Skype. I mean, what did they ever do with that?
I don't know.
After all the money they paid for it.
Yeah, $4.5 billion. What was the number? And then
Yeah,
there were
something
some
like
stock
that.
kickers, and there were some user number kickers as well.
And they never got the code.
They somehow managed not to get the technology that made it all work.
What logic was in that?
Their theory, I think, was that people would get on the calls and haggle over
No,
their
but what's the
prices.
logic of not getting the code for $4 billion?
I know,
That was an extra
Jolt's
B.
ID code. That was just ridiculous. And Meg Whitman was interviewed on the radio yesterday, and she defended the purchase of Skype. How can you defend that?
Wow.
Well,
I thought
she's
it was
running
brilliant,
for governor.
though.
What you going to say?
Yeah, it was brilliant for them to buy it because if I'm an eBayer, I love selling my old electronic crap on eBay, and if I could get an extra nickel or an extra $20, whatever it was, based upon a conversation that I had with someone to make them more confident about what they were buying, I was down with that. But they never really implemented that click-to-talk button.
I did a story recently where I looked at the press release that they released right after doing the purchase, and they basically didn't do any of the things they thought they were going to do.
Nice.
And I'm still not clear why they didn't do more with it, because it did sound good at first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all I know is I think the service is deteriorating.
Yeah, and the software is bloatware, right? I don't even keep it running persistently on my systems. Even with nice dual-core systems, I shut it down unless I'm using it because it just taxes too much of my system resources idle.
Yeah, it's pounding the thing constantly looking for stuff. All right, well, so what's the conclusion? I don't have any clue.
Who cares? It's not Google Voice.
Google Voice is good.
That's right.
Google Dashboard's watching you. Google's finally revealed it knows all about me, and it's a lot, writes PC Magazine editor-in-chief Lance Ulanoff. Thanks to Google's new dashboard feature, anyone with a Google account, which is a Gmail address basically, it can see everything the company is tracking about them, which is good. You want to know what's going on. But I guess Ulanoff, who is a sensationalist. He's a sensationalist. He's trying to just get hits here with this article.
Does it take one to know one? Is that...
I only write thoughtful pieces.
Okay, all right.
So anyway, so Ulanoff, I guess, must have looked at his thing and saw that there was a bunch of weird stuff in there maybe.
This is an old story, though.
Yeah,
but something new about it.
I think it's a brilliant move on Google's part because they get all this criticism over privacy invasion and how much information they collect. So they should. The smartest move is be transparent and just go, here's what we collect.
Yeah.
I discovered that I had been sharing stuff on Orkut, although I had no idea I'd ever been on the site. And a lot of people on my site also discovered that Google was saying they'd been sharing photo albums via Orkut. And that's the one thing I learned from signing into the dashboard.
I learned that...
Yeah, and you weren't doing any Orkut work?
No, as far as I know, I'd never been on it. It was somehow going from Picasa onto Orkut. And I still don't quite know how it happened.
We had Whitfield Diffie, the inventor of encryption, on the show one time, and he made the point that Google knows more about individuals, especially in the U.S., than the NSA knows.
Yeah, and he would know for sure.
And the bad thing is Google knows what to do with that data. The NSA would have no idea what to do with the data.
Right.
But what I learned is I had a shopping cart that I used years ago from someone who was trying out the Google shopping cart. And so Google had my address. So now when I'm doing that search on body decomposing times and buried 6 feet underground in a temperate environment, now Google knows exactly where to send the police.
You're involved in some far out stuff.
It's all going to boil down to black helicopters. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back right after this message.
I'm Danica Patrick, IndyCar driver and GoDaddy girl. I know a little bit about speed, so take it from me. If you want a fast way to make a name for yourself on the internet, GoDaddy has everything you need. GoDaddy got me online fast, and they can do the same for you. .com names as low as $1.99. When you have something to say it at GoDaddy.com.
Welcome back. With regard to that GoDaddy ad you just saw, just remember domain names from GoDaddy.com are up to 70% less than the competition. Plus, as a Cranky Geeks viewer, you can enter the code CRANK, C-R-A-N-K, when you check out, save an additional 10%. Some restrictions apply. See the site for details. Hey, the Android
Motorola.
the Droid came
Yes.
out from. Have you played with it? Anyone here played with it?
I've tried it. It's no iPhone killer, but it does have some features that the iPhone doesn't have, and a lot of people are complaining about the keyboard.
The keyboard stinks.
Which was initially supposed to be an advantage it had, but people don't like it.
Well, it's because it's flat
Yeah.
as a pancake, and you don't have like even nubs, or I mean, you just push. You know, it's not a good keyboard.
But,
No
it
difference.
has a nice big display. It multitasks. It's
The good thing about the keyboard is on the iPhone, the on-screen keyboard fills up almost the entire screen. So if you're doing instant messaging, you can see maybe one line of what you're doing. And at least on the Droid, you get all of that resolution for your work. And that's much better than the feel of the keyboard, which is not so hot.
Yeah, the mechanical design is unbelievable. It's super thin, considering it's a slide out. Typically, those have been much thicker.
Which I think is why they have to make the flat keyboard.
Yeah, but they still, I mean, come on, there's been how many iterations of keyboards from the original Trio to the new Blackberries to even looking with the Bold, Curve, and Tour. 3 different keyboards that are very easy for you to differentiate with your thumbs. Right, the Droid is this big mass of, all you see is lines through the keys. Everything's flat, same elevation. They just didn't differentiate it enough. So I'm really disappointed with that. But the processor, it's the same CPU as the iPhone now? So they give it a little kick in processor power?
It's not quite as fast, but it's close.
Okay.
It's
But
a chip.
so the multitasking, still the big winner there, and integration with Google Voice, which is nice.
So multitasking, I mean, it's just a matter of time before Apple implements it. So how's that a big advantage?
I don't know.
It is
Apple,
for the moment.
You know, here we are a year
Would
after.
you get an Android right now or an iPhone?
So I don't like the Verizon network, and I don't like the T-Mobile network.
You prefer AT&T?
I like AT&T and Sprint. I carry both. So
You know, Sam Levin on last week's show, we were talking a little bit about the Droid, and he made the point that a lot of people will just go for the iPhone because it's the iTunes phone. And that's the whole reason that they choose the phone.
yeah, and that didn't work so well for the Palm Pre, did it, with iTunes
They got
integration?
kicked off.
Yeah. Oops.
They were kicked off.
All right, so I guess the jury's still out more or less on
It's getting better, though. No doubt. Android is getting so much better. Finally, Motorola, you know,
They only sold 100,000 units. They said this was a crappy rollout.
Yeah, but, you know, I thought they'd do better with Verizon. You know, think about what happened with the pre-launch on Sprint. That was another few 100,000 units as well, right? So it's still, in consumers' eyes, not the iPhone. But look what Apple's spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on ads. And the iPhone does have this sexy flick appeal. You know, it's the motion, the movement, everything flows really well on the iPhone.
Yeah, well, it's the hot ticket. T-Mobile users, well, on the topic, reeled during an outage. T-Mobile customers are still seething after a major outage last week that left many people across the country unable to text,
Oh, no.
or call their friends and business associates. Emotions ran high. So the question that you ask is, are people addicted to these things? I can take it or leave these phones. I love text messaging, but
I saw some of these people writing online, though. You
can go on Google Voice. You have Google Voice.
They can't go 5 or 10 minutes without their service,
Well, think about your home phone used to have 5 nines reliability. You'd always pick up your phone, short of natural disasters, and your dial tone would be there. You just don't get that on text messaging. You don't get that on cell phones. And even the gateways, every cell phone uses its own SMS software. But if I, on Sprint, want to text you on AT&T, there's software that sits in the middle that connect those worlds. This was unique because their internal system died. So this just wasn't the interoperability, which sometimes text messages get delayed for hours, just like Twitter goes down. Oh, no.
Those poor people on Sidekicks had just gotten over recovering from the data outage that Sidekicks had, where they were actually losing data, and then this a couple of weeks later. I can see why they would be pretty angry at this point.
Yeah, that danger Sidekick thing was the ultimate proof that this whole all the data is going to move to the cloud thing is not going to pan out. That's exactly why it won't pan out.
But in 2003, when the Sidekick came out, I jumped on it, bought it immediately, loved that it could multitask, it could do great web browsing.
It was the first good web phone.
The first phone with everything backed up in the cloud. So when Microsoft bought this, remember when Microsoft bought Hotmail? They moved everything from the Linux architecture that Hotmail was built on to the .NET.
Yeah,
Microsoft
it was a decidedly anti-open source move
right.
for them to make.
And it died.
It died. So I wonder if this is the same thing that happened. They were running on Danger infrastructure forever, and it was all backed up, and everything was great. And then they went to the Microsoft infrastructure, and then oops, poof, there goes your data. My favorite solution, though, was telling people not to let their phones power off, because as long as they kept their phone on during the outage, when their servers came back up, it would resync.
I would love to think that Microsoft might do a kind of honest, straightforward explanation of exactly what happened and why their backup was corrupt too. I feel like they owe that to people.
I think Dave hit it. They've moved this stuff over to their own system, and they're dog food oriented. They're dog fooding everything, which is the term that they use at Microsoft to indicate
Eat their own.
We do not use Photoshop. We use our own photo editor, because that way we can understand how how the users are suffering. And we'll be suffering in a minute. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back right after this. Hey, if you're looking for the perfect match, go to eharmony.com. Use the code EHCranky and you'll get 4 months for the price of 3. That's eharmony.com, the code EHCranky.
Good Clean Tech promises to report on the latest eco-friendly developments. That way, we'll always be able to remember moments like these. Visit goodcleantech.com, the independent guide to eco-technology.
Take me to your leader. This is the kind of thing that the requests that come in from the chat room. Valuable stuff. Women to live stream her baby's birth.
Woman.
Great.
Women.
Another Octomom, another.
We don't care.
Another balloon baby.
Who wrote that story? We don't care. Bloggers and journalists story, BO3. The New Hampshire Supreme Court heard oral arguments last week in a lawsuit that calls into question the legal protections available to independent websites that cover news. The case involves a website called Implode Explode, which writes pointed articles about the mortgage industry's meltdown. Court asked it to reveal anonymous sources, and writers refused. Of course. Do bloggers have the same rights to protect sources as journalists, Harry?
I don't think that journalists should be protected. I think journalism should be protected. And if what those guys did, it was the same as the New York Times did, I think that the court should handle it the same way. Because today, anybody can be a journalist.
Well, there's always been anyone can be a journalist. Like a reporter for the New York Times could be anybody.
It's a pretty bad environment when writers can't protect their sources. I mean, I'm not in favor of that. Especially when we're seeing all these newspapers go away. Warren Buffett made the point that if all the newspapers go away, there's going to be a lot more dishonesty and bad behavior out there.
Really? How can that be? It's impossible.
So, I mean, the writers need rights. They do.
So you think that what about bloggers?
They need rights too. If they're actually doing.
What if they're making stuff up?
Yeah, if they're making
Why
stuff
didn't the guy
up
just say, look, hey, I had no anonymous source. I just made it up.
I made it up and shut it
I
up.
just made it up. I'm a blogger.
See, that's the problem with the bloggers. Is there's no check and balance. There's no editor. There's no.
Nowadays, there's no editors in newspaper. The editing functions.
It all went away.
Well, no, I mean, there's editors. There's a couple of editors, but not like the olden days when they used to have fact checkers and editors, and then line editors, and then final edits, and all. They go through a whole series, copy editors, and the thing would come out. You wasn't even you read it and go, I wonder who wrote this.
That wasn't my
Oh,
story.
wait a minute, that is mine. But those days are over.
We came from the newspapers.
Well, you're going to be just considered a weirdo. Vista launch sold more PCs than Windows 7.
I buy
Why did
that.
you buy? Because this story is contradictory to other stories I've been reading.
Well, they said that Windows 7 would move tons of PCs and be a big ecosystem changer, which I think it is going to change the ecosystem. But so far,
Well, where'd you get this story?
well, so far it's not selling so many PCs. PC Mag had it.
The boxed upgrades are selling really well, but the PCs aren't.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. There's no new hardware. We're before the school, or launched in a weird time period, right? Right before Black Friday and the big Christmas season for purchasing, and right before the end of summer, which is the back-to-school purchasing season. So here it is in this oddball part of the time of shopping.
You think they should have released it earlier?
Yeah, earlier, back to school. And there's no new hardware initiatives, right? We have quad-core, there's...
Mega-core.
Yeah, mega-core.
Tri-core.
The netbooks, those
You
things
could be
are
right about
winning.
that. There's also some hardware initiatives that are kind of stalled, like USB 3 and stuff.
right.
A lot of people are looking at that and saying, I got to have that. I mean, I'm not going
right.
to buy a new computer without it.
Right, but
There's ultra-low voltage netbooks, which are like around $700 and much more comfortable than a netbook. It's still at a reasonable price with better performance.
Yeah, but those things came out end of summer, right? I think the HP one is the one I'm thinking of, like the 11-inch, and that still ships with Windows XP. So I think the software really needs something that's a hardware game changer to go along with it, because short of us geeks in this room, no one wants to do an OS upgrade.
But I went to this event where Michael Dell was talking a few weeks ago, and he said there's a lot of businesses running very old hardware and software out there. You have old hardware running Windows XP at many businesses, and he made the point that's 8 years old. You can't just keep using technology that old forever. You're going to upgrade.
Does Dell have a vested interest in saying that?
They do. But
They might.
I think he cited enough things that I think he was making a pretty good point.
Yeah.
How about touch in terms of new hardware initiatives? Not that I don't...
Multi-touch or
Yeah,
what?
touch screens, which
Yeah, I don't buy that.
HP's been doing, but other than that...
But I think it's a gimmick for the kitchen. And even that, when people start to put their finger next to my screen to point out something on a web page, I smack it out of the way because I don't want their grimy, greasy mitts on my shiny display.
Yeah, what about happens you happen to be eating a hot dog and all of a sudden you got it and then you hit the screen with the dog and you got mustard on, so you start wiping it and it starts initiating all kinds of programs starting up because you're touching the screen all over the place and you got a million windows open. It can
This is
happen.
how you spend your spare time?
Eating hot dogs and then poking
That's why the
poke the
kitchen-
dog right on the screen, get a little gob of grease on there, but other than that, it's...
The
So
kitchen touchscreen computer is doomed for that reason alone. That's and I had a Chumby in my kitchen for a while, the little internet
what?
appliance.
I love those Chumby things.
Yeah, the internet appliance.
Those are awesome.
And it was
Oh.
a touch screen, and it kept getting food gook all over it. So I moved it to the bathroom.
That's safer.
Good one, Harry. Just making sure we were all paying attention here.
All right. Priceline gets its mojo back of all the dot-com superstars that appeared in the 90s, shone brightly, and then disappeared from sight. Few have been granted a second act, but it's not true for Priceline. After plummeting along with the other dot-coms, it's quietly thriving in travel services. Does this surprise anybody?
just got,
it was really never a dot-com company.
Well, they just made it into the S&P 500. The interesting thing is, what about some of those dot-coms that tried to push so hard and burn through a lot
You
of
mean
money?
like Amazon?
What if they have just taken their feet off the accelerators, evaluated where the web was going in intelligent ways, and moved more slowly? They
And
might
look what we have here.
Look,
might
there were
survive.
some inventions that were so revolutionary
Oh,
and
the
so
Q-cat.
early
Oh,
on
no.
that the future took 8 to 12 years to really come about. This is my invention from Web 1.0, the Q-cat. So, Priceline now is a great way to
What happened to this company?
beat the system. So we raised $200 million with this, and the whole idea was to connect.
Let's back up. You raised what
Actually, $198 million
for that?
for this.
Did you
product.
have one of those business plans that was written on toilet paper?
No, we
Tony?
had a thick business plan. All the money came from strategic partners. So companies that could utilize the technology. We did not bring a single VC dollar in. So ad agencies, they invested in this. Coca-Cola put $10 million
What the
in.
sales pitch must have been absolutely astonishing.
No, rainbows, unicorns,
Who is your
fairy dust.
main pitch master?
This crazy guy.
What was his name?
We don't talk about him anymore.
But he's the one who pitched it?
Yeah, he was a pitch guy. I was the CTO. I was the tech guy. But the whole idea with connecting the physical world, something you had in your hand, to the virtual world, and now that technology lives in cell phones. So you can take pictures of products, and it deep links you to
You were
the
ahead
mobile
of your
web.
time.
Again.
This is the kind of
Yet again.
This is the kind of thing that Effed Company used to make a lot of fun
Yeah,
of. Don't you miss reading that site? I used
Yeah,
to
it's
really
a shame. Well,
enjoy
the
it.
guy was skating on thin ice the whole time, and he.
But they used to do headlines like "Fat Cokehead CEO gets,
Right.
gets slapped" and stuff like that.
He was running for cover constantly. He would expunge all his logs every day, and which was his policy, so it was legal.
And Pud, Phil, he's a good friend of mine now, and I thank him for many hours of pleasurable reading.
It was
the only
great
way I could find what was going on at Tech TV was by reading. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back right after this. Hi, I'm John Dvorak, and this is a look at Squarespace. One of the unique features about this new blogging system is that it has various types of editing you can do. Once you log in, you'll see this. You'll see the big A over here in the corner, which is essentially content editing. But you can go over here to what's called structure editing, and you see a whole bunch of new tabs crop up, which lets you edit pages in very unique ways, all right on the site itself. I think you'll find this a completely unique feature that no other blogging system has. I'm John Dvorak, and that's a look at Squarespace. Welcome back to the Cranky Geeks. You got to see some bit of history there in the last segment. Yes. LTE Concept Car. Is it too high tech? This is the Alcatel, Lucent, Toyota, and others that recently showed off the LTE Concept Car. The car has 4 displays, Wi-Fi, 4G, broadband, streams of all kinds of content. Are these types of cars ever going to get? Are we going to see cars like this?
If you watch the little,
they sound dangerous.
If you watch the video demo of this, it has so many screens inside and so much content going around. It's just ridiculous. You can't imagine someone paying attention to the road in a car like this.
The front passenger has like a movie screen, so if you're driving, I would think you'd have a temptation to go like this and watch.
Right.
Well, some of these new LCD displays have the ability to send different pixels different directions. So you can have one physical display, but dual output. So using polarizing filters, the passenger can watch a movie or surf the web while the driver can just see.
They both get a crappy image.
But look, you're already playing with this stuff. You've got an iPhone or a BlackBerry or both in the car. You're playing with this stuff already, so why not put it in the dashboard? I was just borrowing my buddy's kick-ass BMW M3 convertible. And it has XM delivered traffic information. It's got map overlays with points of interests where you can display logos of the shops and stores nearby. So cool. They're using Sirius and XM to send data down to the cars now. Chrysler did a deal with Sirius where you can watch a handful of channels of television.
And you discovered all this while you were driving?
While I was driving.
I'm going to give you a wide berth.
No, it was a 400 horsepower vehicle, so I was driving at a high rate of speed, checking traffic information. Brilliant. So it's going to be here, right? Persistence in mobile networks and being able to aggregate this stuff on the screen and the display, no doubt it's coming. But we're going to need some stuff like speed limit warnings with locking out deeper menus based upon how fast you're going.
Chumby, by the way, is one of the partners in the concept car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're involved
with
the widgets.
Perfect. I can check my eBay widget as I'm driving down the road.
Great. Let's see. I find that a car should be a car. Some little funky old gauges, a stick shift, clutch.
I don't know. I put an iPhone dock and speakers on my Vespa, so I'm not the right one to talk about.
You have a Vespa?
Yeah, I rebuilt a Vespa. Now I'm rebuilding
an old classic?
I rebuilt
an old. You must look like a total nerd on that thing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay.
But it's the Vespa with speakers is an 08 rebuild from engine cracked apart up. I'm rebuilding now a 65 Lambretta, and I haven't decided what technology to put in that yet. Maybe like a rotary phone.
Those things are dangerous.
You're a geek.
Thank you, sir. Well put.
Talking about that kind of thing, Google buys AdMob. Does anybody see the reason?
Unbelievable.
I know.
$750 million.
Do you know what? We have an interesting story up on this, though. Eric Schmidt was talking a little bit about the purchase, and it's actually, part of it is the AdMob had its stuff tied to a lot of iPhone applications. So Google had two choices. Either they could build an infrastructure like that could reach out to the iPhone, or just buy AdMob for $750 million.
Yep.
And they're rolling in money there. They just bought them.
3-year-old company. I'm kicking myself. I thought it was such a stupid idea, but what happened was all of these app developers that wanted to give away the game. I can't imagine they're making any money with the AdMob clicks, because I watch those ads come across the top of the iPhone. Do you click on them?
No.
No, Harry?
Not once.
Yeah. So, yeah, they bought an infrastructure, but does anyone click on that infrastructure? I doubt.
You know, they also bought the Gizmo project for a much better deal,
Yep.
$30 million. And you were explaining off camera, what does this mean? Because when I first saw it, I said, what are they buying another VoIP company for? Because it just seemed to me to be the same thing they already have with Google Voice and Google, that other thing off of Gmail, they have a Google Call or whatever.
Google Talk.
Google Talk, yeah.
ability.
Yeah, so Gizmo Project was interesting. It was a software client, so they had a Mac, a PC client. They have a mobile client for BlackBerries. I'm not sure if they have an iPhone client for Gizmo, but they have basically Jabber-style infrastructure, so you can instant message and chat. But what they did that was really unique, in my opinion, was they created their own telephone network. They have protected numbers and area code that doesn't exist in the normal dial plan, and you could literally link your Google Voice into your Gizmo project. So you could run a phone system in the cloud via Google and have it point to a voice over IP adapter. Like at home, I've got an asterisk switch. Why wouldn't I? And I can tap my asterisk switch into my Gizmo project number and then make calls via Google Voice, and it all routes off of the POTS, off of the cell phone, off of everything. So I think that's the real value they bought with this.
Interesting. So you have just about every piece of crap that anyone makes, right? Why don't you? Do you ever find it's kind of redundant? You have an iPhone.
Yeah.
Why don't you just call on that?
Because I don't have a voice plan on it. I just have a data plan on my iPhone. So that's another hack that I can talk about later.
Oh, okay.
$20 a month. It's great.
That's it. All
How
you're
many
paying?
devices are you carrying right now?
Well, I have my MERS.
So you got the QCat, you got your MERS.
My
What's a
MERS.
MERS?
A MERS.
It's a
I needed
man
something to
purse.
hold the netbook.
Oh, a MERS.
You don't
So
like a
my
man
man
purse.
purse.
Oh yes, there was a Seinfeld episode dedicated to
the
this. Do you have a
mantle.
fur coat too?
The Manchel. No, I need one.
Yeah.
But no, I needed something. I was carrying my netbook around in a Crown Royal bag.
Yeah.
And I thought that was losing class points with that. But
So you have a phone, you have that, and you got the QCat,
and a BlackBerry. I don't
and
care.
you have a microphone.
I have a microphone right there.
you're-
No, I normally don't carry the QCat with me. That's for John.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to enshrine the QCat. Anyway, that's it for this week's Cranky Geeks. We'll be back again next week. I'm John Dvorak. Thanks for watching.